It's crazy.
How has your day been after this morning?
Oh, this morning's was a bit. It seemed like it was a bit hastily organized.
Yeah,
Shape. I felt bad for the team for coming out all the way, but I had breakfast with them at Wimpy. I got them breakfast, so that was a nice ending to the morning. Um, yeah, and then
yeah.
today has been actually relatively chilled. I just caught up with some work.
Awesome. So we've got 11 people on the live. I see Cam is also texting we are live. I was away, Cam. Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Um, I was away. Don't worry. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Familiar faces back again for those who are with us. I think you've been live. This would be the third time this since this campaign started. So, for those who don't know who we are, I am Khao Palelo Palaitile, but you can refer to me as Khao. And with me today again is Malik Dasoo, the councillor candidate for Ward 87 in Johannesburg, which has a by-election on Wednesday. Very exciting and nerve-wracking, I guess. We've had a very full campaign. So as you know, guys, today is your night. I am here to facilitate your questions to Malik. So you can either ask them on the chat, wherever you are watching from. Just type on the chat. We're going to get it. What your questions are to Malik around being a councillor, why he wants to take up this role. And if you're a resident of Ward 87, which includes areas. If I forget an area, you'll let me know because I've been typing so hard the areas. But they include your Park View. I saw Forest Town for the first time today. I'm not a Joburg resident, but I am a supporter of Malik and the campaign. If it's Park View, Greenside, Melville, Auckland Park, Brixton, Richmond, Forest Town, Westcliff, and 8 Science Centrum. Is it 8 Science Centrum, Malik? How do you say it?
Mm.
8 Science
Eight sides
Centrum.
trip, yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
So, yeah, this is your opportunity to ask someone who's actually vying and lobbying for your vote to become your councillor and fight for your needs as a resident of this ward in the Johannesburg Council. He's young, he's fresh in politics, he's an activist. I heard a lot about him in the past 3 weeks, and even I will tell you, I think this is the guy to lead your ward and to partner with you. So please throw as many questions as you can so that we can have your questions answers, even if it's about voting day, guys. Like nothing is not a there's no such a thing as a stupid question. You can ask us what's going to be on the ballot. We'll talk about just towards the end, we'll just talk about voting because we do know that a lot of people don't know much about by elections, don't know whether they should vote in a by election if they voted in the national election. People are a bit confused. Do they need to re register for such a thing? Do they not? So, Malik, it's been almost 4 weeks of very hardcore campaigning. I think I want to start tonight with how do you feel? Want to get
Yeah,
into the emotions. How are you feeling?
sure. Well, I think I can ask you the same thing. How Camilla, who's also online, yeah, it's been every day going out, and then all the backroom work that goes in beyond that. So it's been very intense. I feel good. I feel good. Yesterday, I'll admit, it was quite tired towards the end. But the end is in sight. And so, all things considered, I still feel good, energized. I really love the engagements we had. So, yeah, a little fragile, but can't complain so far.
Yeah. I think if you were not tired, I'd be a little bit worried because
Yeah,
campaigning is very exhausting. And
yeah,
you've been out there not only pushing early mornings, during the day campaigning, calling,
mm,
having house meetings in the evenings, and also making sure that you do stuff like this. I think one of the greatest things I've enjoyed, you asked how I feel, has been your energy. It's one thing to work with a candidate who doesn't have the right energy or doesn't look interested or doesn't look enthusiastic or passionate about the issue. It makes it really hard to be their support. And I think for me, what's made it very easy for us as a team is being able to support someone who's enthusiastic, who wants to do this, and that also inspires us to do the same. Um, as we wait for the questions, one of the taglines we've used, and I want to play around with it as I ask you this question, is that we want to make you and RISE Mzansi wants to make Ward 87 reliable, connected, clean, and safe. I think I want us to start with reliable. What is a reliable ward in your
Mm,
in your vision as a councillor candidate?
sure. Thanks, Carl. So reliable for me means that, if you're a ratepayer, when you switch on your tap, you should get water. When you switch on your light switch, you should get lights. When you put your waste out, it should be collected. When you go out onto the road, you should not have to worry about your car falling into a hole. The very basic services of a government, which is largely around infrastructure. That for me is what the reliable aspect of it is. But it's also about consistency, right? So what we're wanting to see is that you want to understand how this ward fits into the broader Johannesburg landscape, how the broader Johannesburg landscape fits into the national picture, right? Obviously, there are things that are beyond the control of, for example, a city council. If we have mass water shortages in Gauteng, which is becoming more and more common, there are things that you will likely have to see play out, right? Like even in a very relatively well-run city like Cape Town, when day zero came, even though they have really good water infrastructure, those things are beyond their control. But reliable is in terms of the consistency. So when you are promised things, you should be able to deliver them as long as they're in your control. And so for me, it's about making sure that these things are delivered. So, I mean, I won't go, I think we'll get into each one in a little bit more detail. But yeah, it's those basic infrastructure and service delivery issues that need to be reliable for people.
I love that you started with that because we currently live in a country where we've kind of accepted that we don't get these basic services, and it's almost become a norm. Like, I think the last live we had, I said to you that I live in the West Rand, and I said to you that it's so confusing for me that there is a sign that tells me that there are potholes on the road. And I want to sort of speak on what do you think is the issue and make it particular to Johannesburg for these basic services not to be delivered. I can imagine that in Ward 87, some of these areas have these, services delivered on time, regularly, consistently, but some might not, because we do
Mm,
live also in an unequal country, which is
mm,
seen in our communities and our different types of communities and depending on where it's situated. But what do you particularly think the problem is that makes it so hard at local level to deliver such basic, you said they are basic services to people? And yeah, we just want to really know if our councillor candidates understands what those issues are and what's causing that to happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kha. I think that comes to the crux of testing whether a candidate is fit for purpose. So largely there are structural and these are often technical issues at play, right? And I'll use water as an example because there are these technical issues at play, but the majority of them are largely political. And when I say political, I mean in terms of governance structures, the fact that you have so much corruption, the fact that you have so much maladministration, the fact that you have incompetent people being put in charge of such vital services is a real impediment to actually providing these things. So if I take Hurst Hill Reservoir as a little bit of a microcosm for these problems, there are significant technical issues there. One, the reservoir was built a long time ago and it's no longer fit for purpose. It's no longer fit for purpose, one, because it hasn't been serviced and maintained properly over the years. We've cut corners. right? We've done things. Patchy maintenance work has been done. We haven't replaced the infrastructure at the rate that it needed to be. We haven't built new reservoir capacity, meaning that when there's a big influx of people and rapid urbanization, like there has been in this ward, you put immense pressure on a reservoir that was built for a very different purpose back in the day to do the same job. And so it's been this lack of foresight and planning to deliver on these things. And so you see, and the problem is that when you do this sort of catch-up work, which is what the city is doing, and which is arguably what a lot of councillors are doing, is you have a little problem and you call in services to paper over them, right? But we're not doing anything with a long-term vision. And that's the result of poor political foresight. It's the result of poor governance. It's a lack of accountability. The fact that you have so many councillors in city council who can't hold an executive accountable, the fact that we've had so many mayors turn over who haven't been able to put in long-term plans, is really the crux of the issue. So yes, there are the structural issues, the technical ones that incapacitate our basic service delivery, but they're largely political. And I think just to touch on your other point about the inequality, and it's really fascinating how some areas are, because this ward is very interesting in itself. You have obviously, some of the most well-off neighborhoods in the country in this ward. At the same time, you have areas like Brixton and Auckland Park, which have largely been neglected, and they've, arguably been kept up because of a really passionate and concerned group of residents who've decided to step in and deliver where government and frankly business has failed them. And so you have these issues at play, but really you can't. This is not a sustainable model to keep a ward going. And so what you need is proper governance in place. You can only do that by getting the right people into the right positions.
Not technology testing me. I love what you've outlined, but someone might be sitting there going, I hear you, Malik. I agree with you, Malik. Actually, you are on point. You've got it. But you're this 29-year-old activist who wants to be a ward councillor. And some of the issues you are raising, which are true, are really big issues. They're really national issues as well. They start from the top. They don't just start at the bottom. People are looking at you and going, what are you going to do about it? I mean, why should I vote for you? What are you going to do about it? The DA has been around. Maybe I should try the ANC because, hey, they have a little bit of power. What about the EFF? They're always ready to put up a fight. You are RISE Mzansi. You are Malik Dasoo. You have this beautiful smile. You are someone said you look so soft, What are you guys going to do? What do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
These issues that you're speaking about, and not to make a joke out of it, but they have been fundamentally the problem for a very long time. And they are quite frustrating for South Africans to a point where so many people, and you've seen so many people yourself on the ground, are so disillusioned about politics. They actually don't even want to talk to us. They don't want to hear anything about politics because fundamentally they have lost trust. And people want to know, what are you going to do? And coming with RISE Mzansi, because you don't come alone. What are you guys going to do about it?
Cool. Yeah, no, great question. So let me start it from in terms of what we've got at the moment, and I think that'll be a good justification for what we need, and then I'll talk about what we bring to the table and why that solves many of the problems. So first, what we have an ANC government who is not serious about solving these problems, right? They're interested in securing their short-term employment, arguably. A lot of these people, in fact, I saw an interview recently where an ANC member recently lost his job because they didn't get enough votes. And he said, okay, well, that's my salary gone. It's not an introspection about what they've done to fail the people and why they've not been able to deliver. It's, well, what do I do? What do I do about earning money now? So that's what you have at play in power. And what they did with Al Jamaa in in city council. It's laughable, right? So you have a ruling party that's not serious about solving the problems. You also have an opposition. I'll speak firstly about the DA. That's, in many people's eyes, done a really good job at local government level in delivering immediate services for people. What I would say about this, there's a flaw in two regards here. One is we just don't have a good understanding of what ward councillors are supposed to do. Ward councillors are supposed to represent you in city council, right? What we sort of see their role being now has been a result, in fact, I think quite a deliberate result in lowering people's expectations of what they're supposed to deliver, which is immediate responses to crises, which is necessary but not sufficient to move people out of the state they're in. So you can have a councillor that's on top of the issues, and that's brilliant, and you need that. But if they don't bring the added layer of accountability, how are you holding the executive to account in city council? What are you doing to advance issues where you see misspending, where you see funds not being allocated properly? What are you doing for your constituencies when that happens? And the fact that the DA has been the opposition for so long, and in fact has been in power for a while as well, the fact that you haven't seen any progress, or the fact that we haven't seen any improved accountability, is a failure on our opposition. The EFF, I'm sorry, but they're just not serious as an opposition, right? Their policies change in the wind. I said it in the first. I voted EFF during my first election, and then you see how fickle their politics are, how populist they are in nature, and you realize, they're not going to deliver anything different. Okay, so now let's get on to what we need, and what we need is one. And I think above all, you need people who are compassionate. You need people who are serious about solidarity, right? That's in their core. It's in their DNA. They recognize that this is a deeply unequal country, and you're given a platform and an opportunity to actually represent people, which is an honor bestowed on you by the electorate. If you disrespect them by not doing your job to the best extent possible, you shouldn't be in there, right? So it's compassion, it's loving your neighbors, your community around you. The second thing is professionalism, right? You need to be good enough to do your job, right? You need to be able to understand the technical issues. No one, I don't think anyone has an expectation that a city councillor should have all the answers to all the problems. What they should have the ability to do is pull together the expertise and make a plan, develop a plan and make sure that it happens. And what you need then is, this is the third item, I think, is political savvy, right? And I think this is where my background in activism comes in handy. We're speaking with an expert in public governance issues recently. And what he said was that, a lot of the problems that city councillors face is that they try to do everything by the book, and they don't have to, right? In holding the executive to account, when you have a meeting that has 100 agenda items, and you're trying to push your agenda item to the top, and you're trying to do that in a very sort of bureaucratic way, what do you expect is going to happen, right? So what you need is someone dogged, you need someone determined to be in city council. And also, if you're not seeing progress happening, go outside the rules. Can you make a stink about it? Can you work with your constituency to put pressure? Can you work with other ward councillors to put pressure? And that's political savvy, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why RISE nominated me, is because they've seen that I won't sit down and just let things float by. I won't hand in a memorandum and then wait 2 weeks for a response, right? You bang on that door every day until it gets done. But it's also about having a political maturity. Sorry, I know I'm going on a bit long here, but I'll finish on this point. It's about political maturity. It's recognizing that people need delivery now. It's no good trying to vie for political clout by undermining opposition parties in sittings, right? That hasn't delivered for people, and people are tired of it. What people want, if you ask anyone, always when you say you're from a new party, they always say, oh, well, why didn't you join this one? We didn't join that one because they're not serious about solving these issues, right? If you want to be serious about solving these issues, you're willing to work across party lines and make sure that you deliver for your constituencies. So, that's what I think we bring. In terms of the technical expertise, I did my master's in land and water management. I've got the technical expertise. I studied politics and philosophy in my bachelor's degree. So you come with the critical thinking and the understanding of a political economy, why things move and why things don't. And so it's all of that which I think qualifies me to do this properly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Malik, for that. I loved also that you talked about compassion and love. That's so removed from politics. I don't know if Malik is still there. Oh, there you are. I lost you. I feel like we've lost that in politics. And one of the things that Rise has been saying is that you cannot do this labor without compassion and love. Like, there's just no way you can do it. And speaking about that, we have questions. If you just joined us, I see so many people have come in. We are live with Malik Dasoo, who's the councillor candidate for Ward 87, which covers your Brixton, Melville, Parkview, Richmond, Forest Town, 8 Sun syndrome. That part is so difficult for me. But if you are a resident of that ward, this is your opportunity to actually ask Malik any of your burning questions ahead of the by-election on the 28th, which is next week, Wednesday. Michelle, I'll start with your question and I'll come to the rest, which I also think are very important. But having Malik now speaking about the issues in the area, I thought we would start with, actually, let's start with Prashlan's question. He asks, or they ask, what do you think are the biggest issues facing this ward? I think we're speaking particularly about this ward itself. I'm sure you've been talking to the residents as well.
Yeah, cool. So thank you for that question. So, I mean, the first one that comes up always is water. And I think it's because of the recognition that we can sort of do without lights for, a couple of days at a time. When it comes to water, that's a different story. So number one is water. Number two, and well, I don't know, this one's a bit funny because we haven't had load shedding for so long this year, electricity has sort of dropped down in that priority level, but electricity is still a worry for people. Number three is safety issues. People don't feel safe walking around the streets. People get robbed. This is particularly Brixton and Auckland Park area, Richmond as well. But feelings around security and safety are a big one. There's also big concerns, this is particularly among the residents' associations, along bylaw infringements, bad land use management enforcement. So the fact that illegal developments go up so frequently without proper process, it does a lot. So if I can give you an example, in Auckland Park, because so many student developments have gone up, a lot of them contravening a lot of bylaws. You have a lot of illegal water connections that are being made, a lot of illegal electricity connections being made, and that puts a huge strain on the infrastructure. So that's another example. Another one is illegal dumping, and this is particularly for construction waste, and it's really horrible because that's not something that volunteers can go and remove, right? It's not something that you can just transport out. And then other ones include things around pollution, and this is particularly because we have so many beautiful green spaces in the ward, and people don't care for them properly. So that's a big concern. I think another one, which I think is good for us to talk about later on in this, is there is a big concern around homelessness in the area, and it can take quite an ugly nature to how the complaints come about. But I would like to talk about this at some point because I think it's an important one for us to talk about. But there is a lot of concern around homelessness in the area.
Malik, I don't want us to go back and forth because there's many questions. So if you would take a moment and go a bit more on the homelessness issue and what you think about it and what the residents you've been chatting to have been saying around that.
Sure. Thanks, Hal. So firstly, I think, and people go into areas and out of areas for a number of different reasons. But if I take the Parkers Bowling Club as an example, you have a huge number of people who are staying there, who are developing little temporary residencies there. And they sort of come into the ward to find work, to spend their days, to find food, etc. And so you have this issue of residents not feeling safe because they don't know them. But sorry, the reason why I bring this up is because the complaints about it take different forms. So you have, on the one hand, quite a reactive approach to talking about it, and this one I don't like entertaining, because it sort of treats these people as not even people, right? They sort of see them as just a problem. You need to get rid of them. You need to kick them out. You also have people who sort of say, well, I'm very sympathetic to them, but I just don't want them here. And then you have another group that says, look, these people are here. We need to figure out a way to live with them, because we can't just police this problem away. And I fall in that latter category. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because it's important to understand some of the issues around it. First, I think there's a concern that the majority of them are causing issues around safety, and it's not true, right? The majority of them, and I've gone to speak to a lot of them are just looking for job opportunities. They don't want to live like this. Nobody wants to live like this. They want to find alternatives to what they're having to do. It's not a dignified life that they're living. And so how do you do this, right? How do you live a dignified life? And there's a number of different approaches, and I won't go into them now. But just to say, I think what really helps is for more communication to happen. If you know the people who are staying around you, you have much more trust and much less angst about what they're wanting to do, what they're capable of doing. A lot of that sort of worry goes away. And these are people who can contribute, and so we need to find ways of supporting them in that contribution. I was talking to someone who's involved in the church, who does this amazing work where a lot of these people have backpacks. In that backpack are things like IDs, CVs. These are people who've had work before but have fallen out of employment, and so they're wanting to work. And so this group, it actually collates all of this information for them. It finds them job opportunities. It helps them apply. It provides bicycles for them so that they can get to work. It'll order a taxi for them if they need to. And so there are people who are doing this amazing work. It's obviously not done at the scales required, but I'm just saying that there are options for helping these people, and then also solving a lot of the issues that residents have with people staying there without the right process in place.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I love that. It's okay. I love that you spend so much time on it, because we do know that some of these issues come up as really major issues, and once you become councillor, it might just be like a big issue for you. But I also think it speaks to the compassion you were talking about. And immediately when you spoke about how we can't just police this away, I always say to people, in order for them to understand their privilege, I always make an example of how, if COVID didn't show you that any of us can be homeless, I don't know what else can. That could be you, that could be a family member. And I think if we don't have what our constitution has, because our constitution talks about human dignity and justice, this is what we apply, and RISE Mzansi is about upholding the constitution. And I think that's what you would champion also as a candidate. I want to go to the next question. Thank you guys so much for the questions. Keep them coming. I see some are on social media. Michelle wants to know, have you ever run a ward before? Do you know it's a 24-hour job?
Yeah, thanks for that, Michelle. So the simple answer is no. I've never run a ward before. I am aware it's a 24-hour job. Yeah, at the moment I have a full-time job. I work as a researcher on African food system issues and climate change. So I respond to that. So yeah, I'm aware it's a full-time job. Yeah, I don't know if I want to say anything else on that, Michelle. I'm happy to take any follow-ups you might have.
I also think it's an opportunity to talk about what we often have been saying in this campaign around how a councillor's job is not just to log calls. As much as it is a 24-hour job, the quality of that 24 hours is really more important than just the fact that it's 24 hours. And that's what you're speaking about a lot. And I also think when it comes to the issue of have you ever run a ward before, I think it's a good question. But one of the things that we used to get asked a lot during the national campaign was, you don't have the experience. How are you going to do it? And one of the things our national leader used to say was, Mandela and the ANC had no experience. Somebody gave them a chance, and I think we should give Malik a chance. Before we go to another question by Michelle, I want to give Sandisila a chance. Sandisila wants to know, are you a social democrat?
Social democrat. So I'd say, yeah, I am. And I have a reluctance to sort of boxing myself into these categories, but I would say I am. But let me just explain that, right? So first, the social democrat is towards a form of socialism, right? Which is ultimately arguing that the state has a responsibility to step in where people aren't able to, particularly vulnerable people, aren't able to reap the benefits of living in a country that doesn't necessarily work for them. So it's a form of solidarity, right? Socialism, which is one of my fundamental values. The Democrat part is, that's really important to me, and that's really about how are you practicing politics in a real way? Are you talking to people? Is it deliberative? Is it direct, right? Are you able to represent people appropriately in the relevant structures and go back to them to make sure that they are comfortable with you still representing them? And there's a number of ways in which you do that. But the principle of those two words, I have a strong affinity to.
Thank you very much. And then we have Aziz on Twitter. His question wouldn't be able to come up on here, but he says, crime remains a significant issue in Johannesburg. Oh, there it is. What specific actions will you take to improve safety and security in your ward?
Okay, cool. Thanks, Aziz. Yeah, difficult question because, the area's been grappling with this for a long time. And in some places, it's gotten better. We spoke to the station commander at Parkview Police Station, for example, who has, very confidently and very proudly spoke about how crime rates have gone down. And in fact, the majority of crimes have moved away from contact crimes, petty theft, and it's mostly now the main thing that they deal with is fraud, and it's online fraud. It's people getting caught on SMS scams, for example. So you have a good police force there that's able to do their job properly. But areas like Brixton and Auckland Park are vastly different. You still have issues around kidnapping because there have been so many students who've moved into there, because the nightlife, Melville included, has really gone up. It means that the issues are vastly different. So kidnappings, violent crime, these are contact crimes, grievous bodily harm issues, domestic violence, these are all prominent there. A lot of them are social issues. So it's very difficult to deal with them in a local government setting. They need sort of bigger national approaches to them. But I think there are things that you can do, right? So, for example, we spoke to the police, the station commissioner in Brixton about what they're doing to stamp out crime, particularly among students. And he said that the most successful intervention that they did was making sure students were aware of risks and strategies that they could do to mitigate them. So actually, the most important interventions were sort of social ones, making sure that people are aware, making sure that people can implement things in their daily lives to make them more secure. I think another thing, and this is something that Makashule has spoken about a lot, is the lack of support services to local police, right? So, for example, the fact that you have a lot of police officers moving out of the public police service into private security because it's better pay. is a real worry because it means you lose a lot of really good quality people from your system, and it means that the system can't keep up because it's not attracting the right quality of people in the sector. So, these are things that need work, and that's what you need to lobby for at provincial and at national level. But you need to start at local governance level, because that's where you're able to table these issues and escalate them properly. So it's making sure that our police service is capacitated to do its job. It's making sure that people are aware of what they can do to make themselves safer. It's really unfortunate that people have to do this, but this is the reality of our country at the moment. But also just notice I didn't talk about private security, and that's very deliberate, right? And there've been numerous studies about why private security is not really proving to be the solution that it promises to be, right? And we can go into the reasons for that, but I think those are what I will stop with there.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think one of the things that, and when I spoke about your enthusiasm, is when we were going to the police stations and having constant conversations with the people that are doing the work and understanding where the gaps and the issues are. I think when we were at Brixton, they said they had 3 police vehicles or something at a time or something like that. And that was pretty shocking for
Mhm,
an area that services such a large, part of that place, and that has
mhm,
so much like big crime happening, content crime. And then you go to Parkview, they're talking about online fraud.
mhm,
And also they're complaining about resources as well. So I think those
mhm.
are very important. I think Michelle was probably not here when you answered this question, but for her benefit and others who just joined, I'm sure you can answer it again. But she's asking whether it's the DAEFF or whoever the councillor is up against resistant, you are up against resistance from COJ, Joburg Water,
Mm.
etc. What change will you actually bring?
Yes, yes. Thanks for that question, Michelle. So, um, first, I bring a determination, a doggedness, right? In fact, one of our members in RISE said, what you need is a pit bull in the city of Johannesburg. You need someone who will not give up, like a dog with a bone, right? And actually, the experts of local governance, they agree. Really, there's no reason why we can't hold the executive to account. It just takes like it takes an activist to do it, right? And you do it in a number of ways, and this is something that I think I bring. One, you need to understand an issue properly. You need to be able to speak about it effectively. Two, you need to be able to derive a plan about what you want to do to get it solved. Three, you need to be able to table it on the city of Johannesburg's desk in the agenda item. You need to raise it as an issue. If it gets ignored, you need to push, right? And you need to keep pushing until you get a response. If you're not getting a response, you work outside of those structures. So you make a stink, right? You go to the media, you talk about how the city of Johannesburg is not doing this for its constituencies. You need to go back constantly to your constituency and report back about the developments. Um, and then four is you need to be able to work across party lines to drive this issue home. If you're not able to get political momentum behind you, the executive sort of ignores you. But they're really resistant to be sort of being shamed in these spaces. And so you need to be willing to do that work, which is hard work, but it's work that I've done as an activist. So I think that's what I would be bringing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Michelle did also ask if you live in Ward 87. That's pretty obvious. I'm sure you can also just talk about, your life there and
Yeah,
what you experienced living in the ward.
yeah. So full disclosure, I live 2 roads outside of Ward 87. So I live very near the boundary. I'm in Kilani. Um, but I've grown up around Ward 87 my whole life. So I was born in West Dean, and then moved into Rosebank, and then into Kilani, basically. So yeah, I've lived in these areas. It's where I work. It's where my friends are. So I'm very familiar with the ward. It's all I've known in Joburg.
Thank you very much. And then we move to Upa Tuqolo, who says, firstly, I would like to ask, why is there a by-election in Ward 87? Secondly, why should one voter vote for RISE? That's many questions. Lastly, what are some of the issues you will address in the ward? I think we've spoken a little bit about that. So I think what we should focus on is why is there a by-election? And I think we should answer the one around why vote for RISE again. Thanks,
Cool.
Malik.
So thank you for that question. So first, there's a by-election because the current or the previous ward councillor resigned. She found a new job opportunity, and she's decided to step out. And because of that, a by-election has to be called to find a permanent replacement for at least for the next 2 years. And currently, that because it was a DA ward councillor, they put in a substitute who is currently a PR councillor for Soweto to step in for that position. But you need to hold an election to find a permanent replacement. And then why should you vote RISE? Well, I think we touched on this briefly, but basically, and this is what I am, in total alignment with RISE on, is that we need new leaders. We need new leaders who are serious about solving problems. We need a new kind of politics also. We need a politics that's responsive, that's compassionate. We need a politics that moves away from this sort of syndrome of big men on stages shouting to a politics that will go to your home and talk to you about what's happening in the state of the country and what you feel should be happening. And that's what RISE promises. It's bringing new leaders who are competent, who are professional, who are compassionate, and it brings a new politics that is deliberate in democratic governance.
Thank you so much, Malik. And I think one of the things that you should remember was that all RISE Mzansi candidates signed the contract with South Africa where they, pledged. I don't like the word pledge or promise, but where they committed, to a few things, including accountability. But one of them is accessibility. And Michelle wants to know, will you be personally contactable? And by this, she means, will people have your cell number to escalate issues that okay? And will you be on council groups with residents?
Yes and yes is the short answer. But Michelle, I would also say this, it's not absolutely to both questions. I would also say, though, that one of the primary responsibilities of a ward council, and this is just, it's a really unfortunate fact about the state of local politics, is that we don't recognize that ward councillors are also supposed to facilitate, right? So you're not just supposed to show up to residents' meetings, which is necessary, but you're also supposed to bring people together as a ward councillor to drive issues, to understand them, to seek collective solutions. So because you have so many active people in this ward, right, it's a real benefit. The fact that you have people who are so knowledgeable about the problems, who have ideas about what needs to be done, but they're not being brought together. These conversations aren't being facilitated by anyone. And so that would be one of the other responsibilities that I would have. So it's being responsive, but it's also being proactive about these issues.
I also think it speaks to the connected part of what we've been saying about Ward 87 being reliable, connected, clean, and safe. That's essentially what you're talking about, making sure that people come together. I remember at your launch, you spoke about living in a ward, not knowing your neighbors, never having attended any sort of space where people can come forward. And I think I love what you said, because the minute I thought about it, I thought, oh yeah, connected. I think I'm going to go to Ezekiel, then I'll come back up. Ezekiel wants to know, how will you deal with the issue of refuse collection in Parktown? Most of the dustbins in this particular area, in those streets, take days before they can be cleaned up.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, it's not subject only to Parktown. There are quite a few areas, and you've had. I found it quite interesting. You had. There was this conversation on a residents group recently where they were talking about potentially organizing a rates boycott to force refuse collection on time, to force water delivery issues and road maintenance. So there are this is a problem that's across the board. Well, firstly, it is a city of Johannesburg problem. It's because refuse collection, pick it up, is not delivering what they should be, and so that's about escalating. Because it's not impossible. You can get it done if you escalate properly and you keep pushing. So that's something that we commit to doing. I also want to say something else, and this is about, and the reason why I bring it up is because yesterday we attended. There was a parade in Brixton celebrating the reclaimers, waste reclaimers, who do an incredible job of taking huge amounts of waste out of our system and deriving livelihoods from it. They do an amazing job, and they've been vilified, right? They've been vilified by many political parties, who I won't mention here. But it's because they don't recognize the importance they have in actually taking a lot of the refuse away. So I think we also need to think about how we work with these reclaimers who do such an important job for us. And it's about escalating with Bikita. I think the other thing that I want to mention here, and I think it's something that is not often spoken about enough, is also encouraging behavioral change, right? We can't continue the way we are, right? We live in such a disposable world where we throw out huge amounts of waste at a time because it's in our dustbin, because then it's outside our door, outside our gate. We don't have to think about it. We need to start being more conscious about what we throw away. So I think those three things would be some of it. But I also will say that I don't have all the answers about waste management, but we have an incredible pool of thinkers and people who have been involved in this for decades, who would be able to advise us properly.
Yeah, and I think it speaks back to what you said about bringing people together and organizing those, solution drivers as well, who could come together and, partner with the community. There was a question, and I think I lost it, but I think I can find it on Twitter if I don't see it on Facebook, which I really liked. Aziz wants to know, many young people feel disengaged from politics. What are your plans to involve them more in the decision-making processes?
Yes, I love that question. So, first, I think a lot of people feel distant from politics because politicians suck, right? Like, especially if you can't relate to them, if they're much older than you, if they're from a totally different world than you, if you can't talk to them, then why would they listen to you, right? So, and this is something I liked about RISE, is like they really encourage young leaders to step forward. And it's because they recognize that, the youth don't want to be led by people they have no connection to, that have no understanding of what they're going through. And so as a young person, I think that's something that I bring, is that I think it's also about making sure that there's a politics of real listening and conversation, right? There's so many platitudes of politicians who will go on listening tours and not have anything to show for it because they didn't really care. They did it to tick a box. Whereas it's been the best part of this campaign for me, is just talking to people and listening to what they have to say, because they're much smarter than we are, right? Especially on the issues that affect them. So that's been another thing, and I think people also respond to someone who's genuine, right? You're not putting on a show, or like you're not standing on a stage to make some big speech. You're going into someone's home. You're going to talk to them on the street. You're willing to have a call with them. You're willing to go for a coffee with them because you care. And I think people respond well to people who are genuine and are not just there to show face.
Absolutely. I think I remember during the campaign in May, sometime in May, someone said on Twitter, I thought RISE Mzansi was just an organization ensuring that the youth vote. I never voted before, and because of them, I'm voting. And I think it's so important. I think we spoke about this in our first live about how, I shared about how when I got to RISE, one of the things that really motivated me was getting into the room in my first day And all I saw was young people, and I think I had a culture shock. I was like, what's going on? There were so many young people. I mean, I had someone in my team who used like really, really like like slang for young people today, and I felt very old. Like I don't even use that slang. And I was like, these people are so talented, and I think young people want a seat at the table, and not just a seat, but a voice. And I think I was even going to ask you, Malik, you're 29. What are you doing here? Like, shouldn't you be out there traveling the world and being a nomad
Mm.
or something? um,
Yeah. Well, can
and
I just touch on that
yeah, you
very
can
quickly?
comment. Of
So,
course, you can. Yeah.
yesterday we also attended this session that was it was an amazing session. It was called Youth for Power, and it brought in these activists from across the continent to talk about, and the young activists, right? They talked about how you get young people into positions of power. There were two messages, and I said this on a video yesterday. There were two things that stuck with me. One is that no one has a seat for us at the table, right? And I think Tessa Dooms made this point really nicely, is that she said the failure of the previous generation was the fact that they did nothing to equip us and to support us into getting into positions of power, right? So they made us lose a lot of our youth because we had to figure this out for ourselves. They had the expertise, they had the knowledge, and they knew that they should have done it, but they didn't. So now young people are having to do it themselves, and right, it's what our previous generation had to do, right? Because you had the apartheid government that was not willing to bend. But it's been really disappointing to see how this political establishment just has not been serious about capacitating youth and providing them with the support they need. So no one's got a seat for us at the table. We have to fight for it ourselves, and that's the reason why I'm not a digital nomad. Right? Is because we're the only ones. So if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? And so, when Rise nominated me, it's a simple answer. It's they believe in you. You need to step up and do it. The other thing I would just very quickly say is that when you do get into that position of power, you better do a damn good job, because all eyes are going to be on you, and they're going to be much more critical than they are on you, than they are on people who are older than you, right? Because there's so much more doubt. So it's a difficult space to be, but you have to be ready to deliver when you're called upon.
I love that last one because it also happens to women, but let me not digress.
No, for sure.
Thank you so much, guys, for all your questions. Michelle also wants to know, and I think this is something we speak about as well in this campaign, particularly. She says Parkview is a very old area with chronic infrastructure issues. Regardless of load shedding, we have no water and no power for days because of the aging systems. Do you have a plan to get the infrastructure upgraded? I think this is one of the things you're very passionate about as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you, Michelle. So I would say that the issues of this reservoir and like water problems across the city, water problems across the country are really complex. But first, there's a few things that are needed, right? So one is you need a long-term plan. If we keep papering over these issues, the problems accumulate much faster than one person can respond to, right? So you can keep clamping leaks when they emerge, but eventually the system reaches a breaking point and you can't catch up. So you need to replace infrastructure. You need to replace old pipes. You need to build new reservoirs. You need to replace old pumps. You need to make sure that they're fit for purpose and that they're able to respond to. We're going to see more load shedding in the coming years, and so you need pumps that are able to respond to that intermittent switch of access to power. And for that, you need to replace things, and for that, you need investment. You only get investment if you have one, a good solid plan, and two, the right people in charge. Right? That's the only thing that de-risks people who have money to invest in it. Right? The money is there. The money is there and the willingness to invest is there. What we don't have is a proper plan, and we don't have the right people in place. So that would be something that I would see as my job, is to develop a plan. We have so much expertise just in this ward, right? But in the country as a whole, is get the expertise, put a plan in place. Then you fight for it, right? This is at city council level. You need to show the executive that this is something serious that they haven't done yet, and this is what we need to start doing. And then you need to finance for it, right? So you need to go particularly to the private sector, which is where a lot of the money in this country resides. You need to get money from provincial government, which has much bigger sources of funding and much more ability to allocate that to big infrastructure projects than just the city of Johannesburg. So you need to be able to work at those multiple levels of governance. I want to say something else, is that what you also need to do is recognize that the water issues in Parktown, you can't just solve in Parktown. These need to be precinct-wide water turnaround plans. And for that, you need to work with ward councillors in other wards. And for that, you need a political maturity to be able to work with people from different political backgrounds. So that's some of what we would need to do. But you also need to get residents to understand we can't keep, if we do more of the same, we're going to get more of the same.
Yeah, it's a partnership. It has to be done. It's a collaboration between everyone. Aziz has asked a very good question on Twitter. With mental health issues on the rise and the demanding nature of being a 24/7 counselor, how do you plan to maintain a work-life balance while effectively managing all these crises? Last question, I promise. We still have some time, Aziz. Don't worry.
No, so thanks for that, Aziz, and thank you for bringing it up, because I think it is an important one. So first, let me just say that I have like quite an intense life, like even before this, right? I have a full-time job. I may as well just be a full-time activist because of the work that I do with different movements and organizations. And would really, like, if I didn't have the things that I'm going to list now, I would be a mess. But what does it come down to? So first, I need to be able to do my hobbies, right? Which is bird watching, it's swimming, it's being able to cycle around the city, it's playing soccer once, twice a week with my friends. I'm in a chess club. I read. I play tennis. So, and these are the things that I just need to be able to do to keep up with it. And so that's what I would do. I don't know if I missed another part of that question, but I think that's what my first response is.
No, I think, yeah, he just said, how do you manage work-life balance? There's a joke I saw on Instagram that says to have a work-life balance, you need to have generational wealth. It's just a joke, but I really love your answer on taking care of yourself and being able to do the things you want to do. And I also just think encouraging people to participate. I mean, one of the things that I saw when I went to Germany last year was people cycle. It's like a
Mhm.
community thing. People go for walks, people do
Mhm.
things on Sundays, people are at the park. And I think we've lost some of those things that make a community. And I think one of the things that RISE has in its own commitments is talking about building community. And I think for a ward councillor, that's a big opportunity to
Mm.
almost activate what that would look like,
Mm.
we've written it down on paper, we've committed to it, from the People's Convention, and we've said we want to build a community. The reason why things do not work is that the fabric of a society and a community is no longer there. People no longer speak to each other, sit with each other, plan together, do things together, and that is why we have such a broken society, and that's one of the things we need to deal with. We are at the end. There might be people sitting here wondering, what do I do on Wednesday? Will I see your face?
Mm.
How do I actually vote? What if I voted in the national election? Do I have to do it again here? And all of those kinds of stuff. I'm thinking we can be a little bit technical towards the end.
Cool. Yeah. So first, yes, you have to vote. If you live in the ward and you're registered, you must vote. You have to participate in this democracy because you can't complain if you don't participate. It's just the nature of where we are at the moment. then, uh, if you registered in the national election within Ward 87, and there are 5 voting stations within there, you can check those online. We also have it on our social media platforms. Then you are automatically registered to vote in this by-election. So all you need to do is you need to show up between, I think it's between 8 a.m. Oh, no, it might be earlier than that, and 7 p.m. at night with your ID book, and it will work the same as the national election. And there'll be party agents, there'll be IEC representatives. But yeah, that's what you can expect. I will be moving between all 5 during the day. I think we're also planning an event to close off for people who want to talk to us, for people who want to go and talk to us before they cast their vote. I'll be available. My number is available publicly. You can also contact RISE on social media. We should respond to that about where we'll be and where you can find us to talk to us. But yeah, I think that's everything that people need to know for that.
Yeah, and I think also just to add, the ballot will not have Malik's face, but RISE logo. So you would need to put your X on RISE. And that's where we actually need you to do. I mean, you still have a few days before by election day. What can people expect from this campaign? Are there any activities that people should attend? We will obviously post on our social media and yours, but is there anything else that's coming up that people should look forward to?
Yeah. So tomorrow we are having our last house meeting. We've had a really nice series of them, and that will happen in Parkview. We'll have the details available if you reach out to us for that. You can also, there's also a discussion happening between the councillor candidates, organized by the Parktown Residents Association. To test how different candidates are responding to issues around the ward and what their commitments are. I don't know how widely available that is, but I don't think it'll be a problem to join if you try and find it there. Besides that, we're going to be visible every day. We'll be across the ward every day. Please follow us on social media to find out exactly where and when. But we will be out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we'll close it with Donald's comment who said, all the best, Malik. And I think there's a few people on Twitter who've wished you all the best. I want to thank you for always availing yourself and giving so much of yourself to these conversations, to the campaign as well. I wish you a lot of luck, and I'll be there with you with Camilla at the back as well. Thank you so much, Camilla, for your work. Thank you, Prashlan, Michelle, Aziz, Neo, who also wished you a very good luck for the 28th. Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, everybody who's participated in this session, who's been here. We have about 400 plus people. So, hey, getting votes, Malik. I don't know if you have any last words, but from me, thank you so much to everyone. You've made this such a pleasure. And thank you so much again, Malik.
Yeah, just to say thank you to everyone who participated online. You've given up a bit of your Sunday evening to listen to very boring me talk about issues around the world, but I really appreciate it. How Camilla, the rest of the RISE team, you guys are crazy good at what you do. So thank you for organizing this.
Awesome. Please do follow us, guys, on social media, where you are watching us from. But if you're watching from YouTube, you would want to go to Twitter. We are at RISE Mzansi. You can also follow Malik at Malik_Dasoo. Just to get updated on what we're doing. We also have a WhatsApp channel you can join. So catch up with us so that you see what's happening in the ward. I'm looking forward to that debate and all the other activities we will be having this week. So have a great Sunday further. Good night, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.